We admire our role models, but sometimes wonder if they experience some of the same emotional roadblocks and struggles that we encounter as they achieve career success. Hi, I'm Doris McMillan. Well, in today's edition of Excellent Living, our host, Cheryl Martin, talks with best-selling author, speaker, and life strategist Valorie Burton. She's written 13 books including Let Go of the Guilt, It's About Time, and Successful Women Think Differently. Valorie is also the founder and CEO of the Coaching and Positive Psychology CAP Institute. Her passion is helping others make intentional choices to live more fulfilling, successful lives. Valorie is a popular guest here on Excellent Living, and today she talks candidly with Cheryl about her faith, failures, and fortitude.
Valorie, you are a best-selling author, a certified life coach. You have your own successful business, national, international speaker. What role has faith played in your successes?
Well, my mission is inspiring women to live more fulfilling lives. And I do that through writing, I do it through speaking. Coaching is an element of that. And I really believe that God gave me that mission. Like I sensed it in my spirit back in 1999 and started writing my first book. So for me, this has always been a spiritual journey. It's always been about doing what I feel called to do.
When you got that mission in 1999 and we look at you now, it almost looks as if maybe you didn't have some of the travails that others may have being an entrepreneur, a writer. Did you ever face fear?
Yes. I still have fear. So I don't know even where to start. I mean, I was in public relations. I had a PR firm. I was afraid to step out of that field to try something completely different. If fear, will anyone pick up my book? I self-published. I wanted a big publisher. Then when I, stepped completely out of PR, will I be able to really make a living? It was probably a good 7 years before I really got to where I wanted to be as a speaker. There's always fear, there's always hope for me, hope that what I write really is what my readers will need. But my core fear, and I always talk about there's 4 core fears, my core fear is disapproval and rejection. So I always have to fight against what I think other people will think so that I can really focus in on my gift and my purpose. So, I think fearlessness is a myth. I really do. I think we talk about it a lot, but it's about having courage in the face of your fear.
I'm glad you're honest about that, because I think there are a lot of women who think that if a woman is successful and you admire her, then that woman is not struggling with what she's struggling with at home. So how did you press through the fear?
One, when I'm afraid, I stop and I face it. I acknowledge it. I don't pretend I'm not afraid. And then I make a decision. Like what is on the other side of that fear? What is it that I'm aiming for? I focus far more on my vision than I do on my fears. I think in every element of my life, relationships, finances, my spiritual life, my business, that has been what's helped me most. And it's not that I never get stuck, but I don't stay stuck. And I think that's really the definition of resilience. And what I help people do, get unstuck and be unstoppable, is, we're going to get stuck. Yeah, we're going to get tripped up. Yes, there will be obstacles and fears and distractions and bad habits that we need to let go of. But if you keep moving forward a little at a time, eventually what felt like you were out of your comfort zone, suddenly your comfort zone expands. And so things that used to really make you afraid, maybe they just make you a little afraid, or maybe you're not afraid at all anymore because you were willing to step out of your comfort zone long enough that it no longer, your comfort zone was no longer as small as it used to be.
It's easy to have momentum when you are excited about a vision, and you can even believe that God has given you this vision. You mentioned 7 years. What do you say to that woman who begins to wonder after a while, you know what, did I really hear from God, or is this really something I should pursue because it's not happening on my timetable, or I didn't think it would be this difficult, or let's say she has an idea for a book and she's knocked on all these doors, and it's still shut.
Number one, it's not going to likely happen on your timetable. It'll happen on God's timetable. We have to adjust our expectations and be in prayer a lot. I remember feeling like, oh, I want my books to be out there more. I want to sell more books. I distinctly remember a day where I was out promoting the book. I think I was doing a TV interview. I was at a hotel because I was traveling. And this is the conversation I was having in my head. And what came to me was, it was really like God speaking to me. However many people I have for you to reach, that is your audience. And I want you to reach them with great passion and truth. Your job is to inspire. So if you are comparing yourself to others, then you're always going to be disappointed. And I had a number in my head, like a number of people I knew had already bought the book. And when I really thought about it, I thought, my gosh, that's a lot of people. Like, sometimes I think we get so caught up in how we define success, or we look around us at what the world is telling us. And I think with social media and reality television, a lot of our expectations are skewed. We also don't end up seeing kind of the behind the scenes and the struggle as well. But making sure that whatever your goals are, they are aligned with what God has for you. I think that's really huge. And I think sometimes it's hard, but it's necessary.
How does a person find out, is this my goal or God's goal? It looks good on paper. It's not immoral or illegal.
It should line up. Like, it should line up with the word of God, right? So there's nothing that we can say that God's called us to do that doesn't line up with what we know to be good, right, in his eyes. But secondly, I think we get signs. I think that we feel a sense of peace about continuing to move forward. There is a big difference between something being difficult or hard and it being burdensome, right? The Bible tells us that his burden is light and his yoke is easy. And so what I have found that to mean is that if I am on the right path, even though it might feel hard to persevere, I still feel like I'm growing in that perseverance. I feel like I'm becoming more of the person God's calling me to be. And it's not a burden. Like, it's never been a burden for me to speak and to write and to inspire. Like, I might struggle with my own, I always say I'm a recovering procrastinator. I might struggle with my own bad habits. But I'm never sitting down to write a book thinking, I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, ever. So it's never a burden. It might be hard, but it's not a burden. And you determine that when something feels burdensome. And I've had projects and things that I've done. And when they become burdensome, that's when I step back and I say, okay, is this something I need to let go of? It really is okay to change course if we are off track. And so this is about where you feel at peace. This is also about distinguishing between what's hard and what's a burden, because I believe that is a sign. That is one of those things that kind of tells us, if it's a burden, if you don't have the grace to do it, this might not be what you're meant to do.
I'm glad you brought it up when you called yourself a recovering procrastinator. When I saw that, I love that. That's the secret with a lot of us. So what steps did you take to overcome this self-sabotaging habit?
So there are a couple of ways I've worked through it. One is that I give myself permission to be imperfect. One of the best pieces of advice I ever heard, and I don't even remember who said it. I think I was listening to a podcast, and the person said, give yourself permission to write badly. That was so freeing. Because part of my procrastination was I've got all these ideas in my head, but I got to get them out and they have to sound just perfect when I get them out. No, they don't. When I give myself permission to write badly, I just start writing, and it might not start out being all that great, but when I keep going, that's when I get into flow. That's when the ideas come, because the deep ideas can't happen just in your head. They happen as you get the ideas on paper. More ideas have room to flow. So that for me was a big piece. But another one, and this is something I just started implementing this year. It really can help us to look at our strengths and figure out how to use them to overcome challenges. One of my top strengths is love of learning. I love to learn. And I would envy, there's a strength that in the Gallup Strengths Finder called activator. And I almost would be like jealous of people who have activator, like my husband. Like when he's ready to do something, bam, you're going to be behind because he's taken off. He is running with the idea. And I was like, I want more of activator. I don't know how to get it because I overthink a lot. And I was working with a coach who said, well, what if you thought of taking action as a way to learn? And I thought, why have I never thought of this? I teach this, we train coaches all over the world. And one of the things we teach is that coaching is about taking action and learning from the action. So I began seeing getting started and taking action as a way that I learn more about whatever it is that I'm doing. And that has motivated me. I mean, it's interesting because the people closest to me constantly are like, yep, I see you activating your activator. And it's all about a mindset shift where I don't think of it as, oh, this is something permanent I'm writing or doing. I think of it as when I get started, that's when I learn. And so think about what your own strengths are and what motivates you and how you can put those in place to help you overcome the challenges that are persistent in your life.
That was speaker, life strategist, and best-selling author Valorie Burton. You're listening to Excellent Living with Cheryl Martin. To learn more about this weekly broadcast, just visit excellentliving.org. That's excellentliving.org. Valerie's books include Happy Women Live Better and What's Really Holding You Back. She also launched the online Successful Women's Academy. To learn more about Valorie, her books and programs, just go to valerieburton.com. That's valerieburton.com. Like all of us, Valorie has experienced some challenges along the way. She's talking candidly about them today with our host, Cheryl Martin. Let's get back to their conversation.
In your book, it's about time, the art of choosing the meaningful over the urgent. How do you differentiate between the two?
Well, I think we feel like a lot of things are urgent today, and that's on purpose. That is by design, right? Programmers are paid to make people feel things are urgent. Remember in the 80s, you're a newswoman, like classic. You know what breaking news was, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. If you saw breaking news, we were maybe dropping a bomb somewhere or there was a tornado coming. I mean, it was something you had to know right now. And now we see breaking news. You don't even really think about it. It's just a way to get your attention. Mm-hmm. Same is true with text notifications and email. And everything just feels urgent. And when we give in to that sense of false urgency, we miss out on what's meaningful. It's harder today to notice what is meaningful and to give your time to it because there's so much just fighting for your time, fighting to keep you on those screens. And so choosing the meaningful over the urgent, that's really about your legacy, and it's about making choices that are timeless, meaning choices that matter today. They mattered yesterday, they'll matter 20 years from now.
I love what you said. My struggle with time has often felt like a stronghold, a thorn in my side I could not pluck out.
Yeah.
But you kept going after it, plucking it out, correct?
For me, the stronghold with time wasn't just like about procrastination, Cheryl. I think it started at such a young age that I was praised so much for being the youngest, for being the fastest, for being the first.
The smartest.
This was part of my identity. We have to be careful about what we praise our children for. And this isn't a criticism to my my parents necessarily, because it wasn't, I don't even think it was them so much. I think it was the outside feedback that I got. I felt like that made me somehow valuable.
It was how you had come to define you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have this, I talk about this conversation that I had with my good friend Yvette near the beginning of the book, where I was talking about this very thing. And she asked me something that just stumped me. She basically said, so what did all that rushing get you? What did you get? And I drew a complete blank. And I said, I don't think it got me anything. That was my initial response, was, I don't know that it got me anywhere. It got me missing out on my journey a bit. But I also realized that in part, it got me the feeling that I was looking for, and I had to come to understand my real value and how that just had nothing to do with being younger or smarter or faster. I mean, but oftentimes we don't stop and think things through. We don't reflect on our motivations.
And so what conclusion did you come to regarding your real value?
Well, first and foremost, the conclusion that time is really precious. And I needed to understand that preciousness enough to slow down and not sacrifice the meaningful moments in the quest for something elusive. That, yes, there were some things God had gifted me at. He's gifted us all in certain ways. And yet our gift is not our identity. The gift is just that, it's a gift. Somebody else could have that same gift. We're meant to use it to make an impact, but it doesn't give us more value. We are all God's children. So our job really is listening for the guidance of what's the next step on our path, rather than racing after the next achievement. Asking, how do you want to use me next? How do I need to grow next? And not being afraid to follow what we hear.
Valorie, I'm glad you mentioned value. Talk about the importance of us valuing our time. You said if we don't value our time, others won't.
Yeah, that is so true. So when we don't value our time, I think what we find is that others find ways to use it up, and we don't end up using it on the things that really matter most to us. So this is really about stepping into understanding you're here for a purpose or reason. There are things you need to be doing. And so you have to set boundaries around your time, and to be very intentional about guarding those boundaries.
I like the question that you said to ask, what is worthy of my time?
Yeah.
And I think we can even apply that to social media. Is it worthy of my time to do internet surfing? Is it worthy of my time to go to this Facebook page? Is it worthy of my time to look at this YouTube video?
I don't think we do that enough, right? So, being worthy of your time is, what is worthwhile, what's important, what's significant. When we don't take the time to think about that, what ends up happening over time is we realize how much we've wasted and we can't get it back. It's very difficult sometimes to make peace with lost time. It's a very expensive lesson, depending on how you have spent that time or what decisions you've made. Some decisions are harder to get out of than others.
So what's the art of choosing well?
The art of choosing well, I think, is understanding not only what is worthy of my time, but what is timeless. This is huge, I think, because what is timeless is not just meaningful right now, but you're going to look back and thank yourself for spending your time in that way, right? This is the memories that you create that are meaningful. This is the relationships that you build up. This is getting clear about where you're going in terms of your vision and how you're going to need to invest your time in order to do that. And so some of the things we need to value are counterintuitive. For example, sleep. I think so many of us can wear busyness like a badge of honor. How are you doing? Oh, I'm so busy. I
Everybody
would love
says
it.
that.
Everybody says it. I would love it if we'd start using sleep as a badge of honor. How are you doing? I got 9 hours of sleep last night. How about that as a badge of honor? That we're able to look at how we are taking care of ourselves. We're able to look at how we are engaging in our relationships as a measure of how well we're really doing in our lives.
I think that falls in line with what you said. I love this quote. When you are laser focused on what is right in front of you, you treat every challenge equally.
This is a part of the challenge of modern times, is that we lose the ability to prioritize what really matters because things feel so urgent that we just go to the next thing that feels urgent. You can think of that if you're working on a project and you need to just focus. Maybe it's an intense hour, maybe it's a whole 2-3 hours that you just need to be focused. But hey, here comes the email, here comes the phone call, here comes the text, here comes the breaking news, and we go to what feels urgent. When we don't go deep in our thinking because we're trying to multitask and we're trying to deal with all of these things, we never really do the kind of work that leads to what we're needing, like on a project that really matters, etc. So we think we're multitasking. We're not multitasking. What we're really doing is just going from one urgent thing or seemingly urgent thing to the next.
I've heard it said we learn more from our failures than our successes. So what do you say to the person who has a huge failure that they've experienced and they need to get past that? What have you learned from your failure that you could pass on to them?
Well, I've learned, first of all, that we have to be willing to make peace with our lost time, which means we have to be willing to forgive ourselves. This is huge. When I went through divorce, I had to forgive myself for the decisions that I had made to marry and not get it right. I had to give myself the grace to be human. I had to really have a lot of self-compassion, and self-compassion is powerful. It just means treating yourself the way you would treat a best friend or someone you love if they were dealing with the same thing. We typically won't just go beat up our best friend. We comfort, we encourage, we help them find whatever message or lesson there might be, but we don't keep beating them up over it. And then finding our gratitude in our failures, right? So giving thanks for what we have left, not just focusing on what we lost, is so very important, because then you can make choices about how you want to spend the time that you have left, the time that you have recovered. All of this, I think, is really a part of the healing process when we experience lost time, meaning we spent time that we'll never get back. For me, this was pretty tremendous, and I think it takes having some empathy. Well, in not doing it in the future, I think it requires a lesson in our failure. And that lesson is that as we move forward, we have empathy for our future selves when we're making decisions, that we think ahead of time about, what would be the good choice. One of the best coaching questions you can ask yourself to prevent lost time is looking back 10 years from now. What will you wish you had done? I really believe that when we step into our future selves, we get the benefit of hindsight. We actually change our perspective and think about, yeah, if I do this now, where am I going to be in 10 years? And that helps us to make good choices about our time today.
Valorie, thank you so much. I know how precious your time is. It is a gift. So thank you for sharing it with Excellent Living. And I only wish greater increase for you. And may God continue to shine on all you do for His glory.
Thank you, Cheryl. I pray the same for you.
We trust that you are inspired to live your life with purpose, no matter the setbacks, as a result of hearing this candid dialogue between our host, Cheryl Martin, and best-selling author and life strategist, Valorie Burton. You can listen again when you visit our website, excellentliving.org. That's excellentliving.org. Valorie is the author of more than 10 books and the founder and CEO of the Coaching and Positive Psychology, CAP, Institute. She offers online training for established and aspiring coaches. To learn more, just go to ValorieBurton.com. That's ValorieBurton.com. If you're new to Excellent Living, thanks so much for joining us today. We're committed to encouraging and empowering you to do all of life God's way because it's the best way. We do so with this weekly broadcast and with Cheryl's Good News Anchor episodes found on YouTube. While there, just search Cheryl Martin, Good News Anchor. We'd love for you to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Excellent Living. And ladies, you can join us once a month on Zoom for First Wednesdays, a live interactive teaching with Cheryl Martin. To get an invite, just join our email list when you visit our website, excellentliving.org. Next time, our relationship expert, Dr. Johnny Parker, joins us for his monthly visit.